next.
I'm gonna tell y'all something, man. I knew this beforehand, but Gillie and Wallow is the highest paid black podcasters in the game.
That's not what the list says.
Man, don't bring that up.
All of these years, I've been looking at Charlamagne and I like Magneto and Professor X that just have some of the same views but different ways of getting there, different ideologies. And I always thought that he was like that second tier right under me. I always thought that right after me was him because the optics made it look like that. But then him and Envy went up there looking doofy and goofy, and they just sucked so much dick that Charlamagne was looking up to Gillie and Wallow in awe. It was like a light illuminating from them. And he said, they are the highest. And it hit me and I got sad. It killed a little piece of me to know, holy shit. Charlamagne is saying that Gillie and Wallow make more than him. Uh-oh. You mean to tell self? I said to myself, self, no way. Not with a late night show. Envy just told me about a podcast network. You just had your podcast fest. You did like a festival of sorts, something thingamajiggy you did up there in Atlanta on fight weekend. Didn't sound bright. Didn't hear much about it. But I saw you had Just Hilarious. And, you know, I know how much I make for my pod. I just always assume it hit me like a ton of bricks. I said, Charlamagne don't have $30 million.
I turn the fuck up when I'm feeling good in here.
Somebody lied,
I don't want to hear none of that money talk from you niggas. Your headboard is covering a very small window in your primary bedroom. I can tell it's not like that. Stop fucking playing with me in here. Let's go.
I could tell.
I knew it on the walk here.
That shit is a wallet-sized window.
Oh, shit.
All right, no.
Stop. Just because you got big windows, don't laugh at people that got other windows. Don't do that.
The window
That's
shade.
the other thing that's
No
funny.
window
People
shade.
don't even really know why it's funny, but it's funny.
Why? Is it a basement window?
Should have went at the 4.6.
I'm asking.
I don't know. I used to have a fish tank with that window. All right.
Stop, man.
A fish tank.
I hate when come up and they start making fun of it.
That look like the window from... All right. Maybe he's a fucking possum breeder. That shit look like a possum window.
Pod Wars. Joe Budden from the Joe Budden podcast and Gillie the Kid from $1 Million Worth of Game podcast have had some choice words for one another this past week. Starting on $1 Million Worth of Game podcast episode featuring Charlamagne the God, where Gillie and Wallow were showing him some figure, some dollar amount on their phone, and he replied that they were the highest paid podcasters in the business. But then Charlamagne sent a little shot to Joe, referring to a podcast list that Complex had put out weeks prior that had Joe Budden podcast #1. And I believe $1 Million Worth of Game came in at #4, and Charlamagne the God came in at #3. When Joe Budden caught wind of the conversation on his following podcast, he addressed it, saying maybe Charlamagne doesn't have as much money as people may think he has, and saying that him and DJ Envy have a past relationship, but DJ Envy seems to be standing on the side of Charlamagne. It's probably because they work so closely together. And not to forget about Gillie. On Joe Budden's next podcast, he makes a comment about someone having a very small window in their primary bedroom. Then the internet started interneting, and a picture surfaced where you see Gillie in a bedroom with a small window. First posted by academics, and Gillie the Kid jumped in the comments basically saying Joe Budden is trying to start podcast beef, basically because he's broke. Gillie said in the comment, when that money slow up, you want a podcast beef, with Joe Budden responding at Gillie the Kid, I ain't like your little ad speech. I took that personally. Laughing emoji. And then Gillie the Kid left Instagram, went to Twitter, and said, quote, after the washed up rap career, in and out of all the rehabs, all the beating on women, now you want a podcast beef. I'll beef when you start getting some ad money. Hashtag got him, with Joe Budden replying saying, quote, you selling ass out here for cheap. Watch your mouth when you speak to or of me, end quote. Now if you thought that was the end, you'd be sadly mistaken, cause on Joe Budden's most recent podcast, he's still going in on Gillie talking about that window. He called it wallet size. He said he had a fish tank that small, even saying maybe he's a possum breeder. Man, these Pod Boys are getting crazy about a day. You got Joe Budden beefing with Gillie, Charlamagne beefing with Joe, rather beefing with each other, going back and forth with Camron, who also caught a stray on the latest podcast. Now, I ain't gonna get too deep in their beef, but what I will say, Camron said he was looking for Joe. Joe said, I'm in New Jersey. Now, I don't know if he ever found him or not. Nah, I'm kidding. Camron called Joe a crackhead. Joe told Cam that he's too sensitive to go back and forth with him, and also saying that that crackhead had lapped him long ago. Pause. So me personally, man, I think that everybody get money, everybody's rich. It'd be cool if everybody could take that money, put that shit together, start a fucking podcast, network, conglomeration, corporation, foundation. Fuck, I don't know. But either way, man, I'm entertained. We'll see if Gillie or Cam respond to Joe. I keep you updated if anything develops in this story. You know you gotta throw them O's up one time. Hit that subscribe, hit that like, and I'll get with y'all in a little minute. Stay out the way.
I turn the fuck up when I'm feeling good in here.
Somebody lied,
I don't want to hear none of that money talk from you niggas. Your headboard is covering a very small window in your primary bedroom. I can tell it's not like that. Stop fucking playing with